lunch. This afternoon, Alexandrian's going to be talking about another problem that I've certainly run into a lot in my own web development, which is that there are a diversity of resources on the back end that your web pages need to grab onto. And if you do it stupidly, it takes a long time for your web pages to load. So doing it intelligently really makes a big difference to the end user. And that's a lot of what she's going to be talking about. So,
thank you. So yeah, let's get started. My name is unpronounceable, probably. So my name is Alexandrine Boissière. I'm a technical engineering manager and a front-end architect at Hootsuite, a company based in Vancouver, Canada. Those slides are online. I'm going to publish a link from my Twitter account at the end of that session, so you will be able to grab the link later if you want to. So Hootsuite, the company for which I'm working, it's a social media management tool that helps users engage with their audience. And from an engineering point of view, I would describe it as like a massive single-page application with more than 130,000 lines of JavaScript code, probably almost the same for CSS. And yeah, I've been working on it for 4 years, almost 4 years now. And amongst other things, I've been designing and maintaining the static assets pipeline. So you may be wondering, what is static assets pipeline? So I'm going first to come up with some definition and explain why do we care. And then I'm going to put together a list of requirements that an efficient static assets pipeline needs to comply with. And finally, I'm going to walk you through some demos to showcase Webpack, which is like the tool we are using internally since a few months now. Static assets are static files that you are going to serve or should be serving from a CDN, a content delivery network. So JavaScript, CSS, images, fonts, Swift files, if you still have some of them. I mean, we do. Static assets pipeline is like a series of actions that is going to process those files and convert them to a CDN-ready assets. So those actions may be compilation. For example, if you are using a CSS preprocessor like Less or CoffeeScript, you need to compile those files. Concatenation, minification, compression, if ever your CDN is not taking care of it. A single-page application, last definition. A single-page application is a web application that fits in one single HTML page. And then the users, as he interacts with the application, sections of the application are going to get dynamically updated without the need of a complete reload until a problem arises. Like the refresh button should be almost like rename fix me in the browser. It's kind of the way to make like a single page application to work when it's broken. So this is something you should avoid. And the problem is single page application rely a lot, heavily on JavaScript and CSS. And I mean, I love JavaScript. That's my language of predilection. Maybe it's like the Stockholm syndrome. I mean, I really like it. But the thing is, it was not ready to play such a predominant role. That's the reality. I always picture it like, what? I'm going to do that? I was supposed to open pop-ups and take care of countdown timers, and I'm not supposed to do that. So it had to mature a lot, and CSS too. And so if you want to have a successful single-page application, you need to put discipline and put structure in your JavaScript and CSS files. And how do you ensure code quality? Like exactly the same way as you do for every piece of software out there. You need to make sure it processes those 4 traits, which is reliability, security, maintainability, efficiency. And I mean, is code quality only about code? Actually, like what struck me the most as I was working on the static assets pipeline is like, not only actually, like the static assets pipeline is crucial and it participates a lot. Almost all the major improvements we made in the front-end application, they all involve at one point or another a change in the static assets pipeline, and even like the other way around. Sometimes we add an enhancement to the static asset pipeline, and suddenly we were able to write more sustainable code. So it plays a big role on at least 3 of those characteristics. Maintainability first. It's achieved through modularity. You need to apply the single responsibility principle and break down your code into cohesive modules. And you also need to trace down dependencies. That's the only way you will be able to remove obsolete code when you don't need anything. I mean, that's part of the code base anymore. That's extremely important for JavaScript and CSS because your user is going to download your code. So if ever you keep in your code things that are not used anymore, the files are going to get bigger for no reason. So tracing dependencies is extremely important. Because of that, at the end, your code base is going to have hundreds of files very quickly, maybe more than that after a while. Efficiency, there is another word for that for the front end. It's like web performance. And the number 1 rule is to make sure that you minimize the number of HTTP requests. As a result, you're going to serve only a few files from the CDN for each page. Big files, I'm going to call them bundles. So you will have like only 1 or 2 JavaScript files per page, the same thing for CSS. Reliability. For an application to be reliable, you need to have a dev environment that matches as much as possible the production environment. And having a dev environment that relies on hundreds of files while your production only serves like a few bundles, I mean, you have to be ready for last-minute surprises because it's not the same setup and it's not going to work the same way when it's going to reach staging and production. So production is right. It should be like that. So dev has to adapt and do the same thing. You need to bundle files on dev. When you're going to say that to your team, they're going to yell at you because it's not something you do with JavaScript and CSS usually. But that's really important. So I'm going to put together a checklist, like a list of requirements that the static assets pipeline and the tool we are going to pick it needs to satisfy all those criteria. The first one is the broad module format compatibility. You are going to pick for your own code base, you're going to pick one module format. It may be AMD, CommonJS, whatever you want. But the thing is, you're also going to use third-party libraries at one point or another. So you have to make sure that you will be able to use them. You don't know which module format they are going to use. Maybe they are using UMD if you are lucky, but if you're not, you need to be able to integrate those third-party library in your static assets pipeline. The second requirement is if 1 minute, like a build time of 1 minute is like perfectly, it's reasonable for a deployment process. When you are, as a front-end developer, when I'm editing a line, I don't want to wait 1 minute for everything to rebundle before I can reload the page and see if it's working or not. So it needs to be really, really fast when bundling all those files. Let's focus on the user experience, and like by picking like a typical website, you have a home page, a login page, the application itself, which is a single page application, a pricing page. When your user is going to land on the home page, he will download homepage.js. On the login page, login.js. Same thing with the 2 other ones, app.js and plans.js. That's great. You follow the rule, like you only have one HTTP request per page. But the thing is, look, the code that is specific to that page is probably very, very small. Most of that bundle is going to be actually like made of jQuery if you're using it, or MVC framework, or React. So there's a lot of redundancy between those files, and it is going to hurt your performance. The best approach is to have one common.js. It has nothing to do with the format. It's like just like a bundle that is going to share to all the files that are common to all your bundles. So the user is going to download this one first, and then is going to download a very small file on page.js. When he reaches like the login page, he will also need common.js, but it is in the cache, in your brother cache. He will only have to download a small bundle, which is login.js, and same thing goes with the 2 other pages. So it's going to be faster after the second page. But like, if fast is not, if you're not really concerned about web performance, you should. But if it's not something that is like your top priority, you are also going to save money because you're paying for the CDN. So if you are uploading bigger files that all the same code, you're going to pay more, and because you are uploading bigger files and your users are going to download bigger files. So by having this common bundle, you are going to cut your CDN cost. So it's a new item for our checklist. It needs to create common bundles, and if it could do that automatically, it would be great. A single page application now. It starts small and then it grows very quickly, I mean, if it works. And most of the time it's made of several sections. And all the sections are very different since there are different sections. So you may have an analytics section that is going to need D3, which is a huge JavaScript library. Maybe like another section is going to use moment.js. And because of that, this app.js is going to get big and we'll have to have all those third-party libraries. It would be much better if we could load the files on demand. When your user actually goes to the section 1 at this time and this time only, you're going to download the code necessary for that section. Same thing for this analytics section. You're only going to download a file with D3 when you are actually opening that section. New item, load files on demand. Caching, like a few slides ago, I mentioned that comment.js was in the cache of your browser, but it's not. You have to set up HTTP headers for this to happen. And there are two different models. Like the first one is like the HTTP validation model. It's using two sets of headers, last modified, if modified since, tag, if non-match. You can use only one of them. So how does that work? When your user goes to your website for the first time, the browser is going to request a file and is going to get it back from the server with an tag on it, like a mark, a hash. The second time, because your user is going to come back to your website, it's a great website, so he's going to come back. And the second time, the browser has the resource in its cache, but it needs to validate the cache state. So it's going to, what is it going to do is going to do a conditional get request. It's going to say, I need this file, and if non-match, like the tag you received from the server the last time. The server, if the file didn't change, the server is going to send back a 304 not modified response, which basically is an empty body. So it's a very lightweight response. So this way you don't have to re-download the file. You're just getting back, this is good. Use what you have. So it's good, but there is a better solution, which is like the HTTP expiration model, which is using also two sets of headers, cache control and expires. So something first time, the browser is going to request that file. The server is going to send it back with a cache control header. In that case, it means like this file is considered fresh for the next month. When your user comes back 1 week later, the browser knows, he has the resource in the cache. It's going to check the expiration date. It's still valid. It's not making any request to the server. So you eliminate the round trip to the server, which is a much better way to do things. But because of that, your website is changing constantly. There is no way for you to know if that file is going to be valid for 1 month. You may change something. There's no way for you to know. So you need to make sure that your user is using the latest version. And to do that, you will need to version your assets. So versioning your assets, basically just putting a fingerprint somewhere in the URL, so the browser will have to make a new request because the URL changed, basically. There are two different strategies. The first one, most of the time it's using a folder, and the folder is going to be the release tag. So every time you're doing a release, you're going to reprocess all your static assets and put all of them inside one folder. So like the user is going to get the latest version. But most of the time, that common.js file that, for example, is jQuery and other libraries, is not going to change often. You're not going to update that library very often, so you don't want the user and yourself to have to download, to download that file over and over again. At Hootsuite, we are doing we have 2,000 releases last year, so it's like several times a day. We don't want the users to have to download that CommonJS file again because it's going to be exactly the same one. So the other strategy is a per file strategy. You are going to hash the content of that file and put that hash on your file. So a new file will be generated only if the content changed. So the first strategy is great. It's like you can see it a lot because it's super easy to implement. The second one is much better, but more difficult to set up. Adding a fingerprint on a file, hashing a file and adding that fingerprint, that's super easy. But the thing is your code base needs to know about the new path. And everywhere in your code base, you only have the avatar.ping, and that's all you have. So you need to update the file name on the server-side templates. That's easy. Client-side templates, that's not too difficult too. You just need to send back all the data necessary. But you also need to change all the references to images and fonts inside CSS. So basically, you will have to use less, have variable, update them on the fly when you are deploying. You can put a system in place yourself, but that's complex. So a new item, that's the last one. We need to version assets on a per file basis. So now we know what we need. We know what a good static assets pipeline is. We need to find a tool that is going to do that for us, because we are lazy and we don't want to do it ourselves every single time. So there are two very popular tools out there, RequireJS and Browserify. And let's see if they fill the bill or not. RequireJS first. So it's compatible with AMD, of course, because it is its own module format anyway. It's also working with CommonJS, but the documentation is very clear. Maybe some files won't work, so that's kind of a no-go. Fast build time. For deployment, it's okay, but when you are on dev, it's rebuilding every single file, every single bundle. So if you have a lot of them, it's going to be too slow. Create common bundles, yes, it can do that, but you have to add some manual configuration to the system. Load files on demand, yes, that's what RequireJS is known for, so it definitely can do that. Version assets per file, no, you will have to implement it yourself. Let's have a look to Browserify now. So Browserify is working with CommonJS out of the box. And then you have plugins for AMD and ES6 modules. Fast build time, yeah, it's much better because it's going to only recreate the file that changed and only those ones. So it's fast. Create common bundles, yes, with a plugin. Browserify has a lot of plugins. You're going to spend a lot of time trying to find plugins. Load files on demand? No, you will have to do that yourself. There's nothing for this. Version assets per file? No. I was surprised I didn't find a plugin for it. Maybe there is one, but no, I don't think I didn't find it. So that's nice. Browserify seems to be the best one. But I would really like to have yes everywhere for every single requirement. So I heard about this new tool last year. And that it is called Webpack. It has been created by one guy, Tobias Koppers. I really want to say his name because he has done like an amazing job. He's maintaining it, and the best thing I can say is it took me 2 days to do what took me 2 weeks to do with Browserify, to set up Browserify so it works for us. I want to say one thing. Browserify, if you start an application from scratch, is probably it works like a charm. But when you have a 6-year-old application, it's kind of difficult to make it work. So it took me 2 days. And the second thing is to make things work with Browserify, I had to read the entire source code because it was not working for us, and I needed to find a way to make it work. Webpack, I only read the code out of curiosity. Only because everything worked right away. So let's check. Let's go through our criteria and see if everything is working. So compatible module formats, AMD and CommonJS right out of the box. You don't need any plugin. It's going to work right away and very well. For ES6 modules, you have what Webpack calls a loader. Compilation time for exactly the same, I really check with the exact same code. Browserify was taking 25 seconds to bundle 33 bundles. Webpack was only taking 11 seconds, so much faster. And even if that speed improvement is not something that is a selling point for you, there is something else that may change your mind. Webpack stands out because of a very simple idea, which is a stroke of genius actually. It's like taking the module concept to another level. It's like the future is about components. I'm sure you already heard the word components several times this morning. So the future of the front end is components. And Webpack is basically asking, why only JavaScript? A component is more than JavaScript. When you have a component, you will have also CSS files, templates, images. It's too bad to have them, to have JavaScript have its own module on one side and have everything else excluded. So why do we so far we will only require JavaScript because the require function can only require JavaScript file and JSON file. And with Webpack, it's possible now to actually require from your JavaScript file a less file directly. Or your template or images, you can require every single static asset that you are using. And it's really great for dead code elimination too, because you know the relationship between all your components, all your assets. How does that work? It works because of loaders. Loaders actually are it's like more transformers in the sense that it transforms the content of that file at build time into something that is comprehensible for JavaScript and create a module for it. So this is like an example of configuration for loaders. It's using a regular expression to know on which file apply this transformation, and then like the name of the loader. So for the template, the J template is going to take the content, pre-compile it for you, and insert it into the JavaScript bundle. So you're going to be able to serve pre-compiled templates. For CSS, you can see that you can also pipe loaders. There are two: style, exclamation mark, CSS. So you can actually pipe loaders. So it's really, you can extend it very easily. And the third one, about the ping files. This one is really powerful. So basically it says every ping file that you can find, you're going to output a new file for it, except if it's smaller than 500, I don't even know, it's probably bytes. So like the limit basically means that if that file, the image is smaller than this size, instead of creating a separate image, it's going to embed the content by converting it to a base64 string format and using a data URI scheme. It's going to insert it directly into your CSS or your JavaScript. So instead of having an HTTP request for a small image, you will be able to embed it because of this configuration directly in your CSS or JavaScript. Really powerful. A serving suggestion, we made the migration to Webpack because we are also migrating to React, and it works really well with React. It works really well with the idea of a component, and it would be cool to separate them. So really, like, React and Webpack are a perfect match. I'm going to now go through some demos to show you actually how it works. A word about that before. I put together a sample application. It's on GitHub. All the different steps I'm going to show you are in the README file. So if you want to try it later, you can. For reference, everything is in the README file. So if I manage to have. Okay. So this is a sample application about Paris. It's basically it's really simple. A home page, a pricing, plans page. You have the login page, and it's really secure because to access the application you only need to click on sign in, and then and then you have the single page application itself. Everything is built with React. So I mean, you can navigate from one page to the other. It's like a single page application. It doesn't reload itself. You have an analytics sections too. So let's have everything. So Webpack can be used directly from the command line. This is this line. To avoid to type that every time in front of you, which is going to take some time, I added some npm script in the package.json that actually are going to trigger that for me. Also, the second thing you need to know, there is a Node.js backend server that also is triggered because everything is on my is run locally right now. So I will probably have to switch between different server configuration. So right now, Webpack is running and it generated all those files. You can see that it's not only JavaScript, you also have images and fonts. So you have like 4 JavaScript files right here for each page. So if you go back to the website, you can see that as a dev I made a mistake. I have the same icon for those 2 items. So I'm going to change that. So this is my home page. So let's make it bigger. This is like my code for my home page. I can see that I have another icon that is not used. I'm going to update it right here. I'm going to replace. This is only my home page, and I'm making a change on my home. I'm making a change only on the home page, not here. Here. And you can see that the home page was regenerated very quickly on only the home page. So if I go back to the website and I reload, I've got Notre Dame icon right here. So it's really, really fast. And the thing is, so it's watching files and it recompile them very quickly. But there is even better than that. Webpack is coming with something called Webpack Dev Server, which is like a dev static assets server. And instead of compiling files and writing them on the disk, it's going to keep them in memory. So we're going to give it a try. So I need a new server. And I'm going to start the Webpack Dev Server. So it's bundling everything. It's really fast. I'm going to put the website right here. And now what I can do, I can make a change. Continue editing. I'm going to change that name. And I didn't. Yeah, I know what I did. I need to reload that page because I rebundled everything. So I was using the last version. So I can change it. And I mean, you cannot. It's not me. I didn't reload the page. It reloaded itself. So I mean, really, like it's just live reload. It's nothing new, but it's great to have. But you can do better than that. I'm going to go inside the logging page. I mean, actually, I'm going to go directly to the application itself. And now I want to have in front of every single point of interest, I want to add the text visit in front of it. So I'm going to change the code right here. This is like the React component for this component, this image. And I'm going to add visit right here. I'm saving. It didn't reload at all, but it updated. So this is called odd module replacement. It's going to remove the module from the page directly and reinsert it without changing the state of the other elements. So as a dev, when you are working, it's like really faster. So not only, I mean, you have a very fast build time on dev, but it's actually the perception of speed makes it even faster than when we were not using Webpack. And it's not only for JavaScript. You can see here I'm requiring a CSS file. If I go to the CSS file and I'm changing the CSS code and I'm just saving, and it's updates itself without any reload or anything. So I think we can say that for the fast build time, yeah, it's really when you are developing, it's your experience as a dev is going to be much better. So this is about the fast build time. Now we are going to try to create a common bundle. So let's look at our Webpack configuration right here. So this is not real Webpack configuration. I created a wrapper. I mean, if I was showing you this is my wrapper actually. If I was showing you like the real Webpack configuration, it would be like, it's kind of cryptic. You need to know about it. So I created this wrapper so you can actually turn flags on and off to see how it works. So I have like one for creating a common bundle. I need to switch back to the old configuration. But actually, before I even do that, I'm going to show you, I'm going to create statistic about the bundles we have right now. So it's going through all the bundles, and it created like statistics right here. Webpack comes with an analysis tool, and you can actually know okay, I'm going to go directly 9. No! I don't know the. It's like it was DT.
DT 2015 Wi-Fi.
Coupon, yeah. This is really live coding. 2015 Wi-Fi. It was like Wi-Fi, if I remember well. Taking some time. Okay, I'm going to give a try to the local version one more time. It is, oh. Yes, okay, so let's use our statistic file. So it's going to go through everything you have and tell you which kind of modules you are using, how they are organized, the different bundles, and it's also going to give you hints. So basically right here, it's telling you that all those files are in the 4 bundles. They are all using all those files, except one at the bottom that is only used in 2 of them. The sign up button is on the home page and on the login page. So let's try to move everything that is common into a single, like a common bundle. So we're going to switch this to true. Go back here, run my server, and run Webpack. So you can see we have a new file right here. Before, like each bundle was around 1 meg. It's not minified. It was around 1 meg. The application was around 2 meg. Now we have a common bundle that is holding almost all the code actually, because plans and logging are very, very small now. And it just created that automatically for you. It went through all your bundle, find all the files that were shared, and create that common bundle for you. You didn't need to do anything. And you can actually, there is some configuration to make it even, more, to fine grain it. Like, for example, you can say, move everything in the in the CommonJS, move everything that is shared by at least 2 files. So if we do it again, now the home page and the login page are a little bit smaller because the sign up button was moved to the common bundle. So it's really, that's the thing that surprised me with Webpack. It's like as if like the main developer thought about everything. I mean, everything is ready to be configured. So that's really awesome. So let's go back to the slides. So we know that fast build time, yeah, it's great. Common chunks, because that's the way Webpack is calling it. Common bundles, yes, you can create that and automatically, so you don't have to take care of it. Now on-demand loading, what the problem with on-demand loading? If you are like tracing down your dependencies, so you're doing your main app is going to require your router is going to require the code that is going to initialize your different section, and then they're going to require their own code. Because of that, everything is going to be inside the same bundle because you are tracing down your dependencies. So you need to find a way to add a split point for the section, and Webpack has this new function that is called require ensure, and it exactly what it is doing is like it's adding in a split point. So let's have a look in the code directly. So if I go to my router, here you can see I have a variable, and if it's false, I'm going to do like a require, like what is like require a normal require statement. Here I'm going to use that React router proxy that is going to use require ensure directly. So if I change this right here, Webpack has another plugin that lets you define a variable that you can use as feature flagging. So it's going to insert on the fly at build time. It's possible to set a value for that flag, and it's going to update the code directly. So here I'm going to say, yeah, I want to split the code. I'm going to rerun my Webpack task. It work. It's bleeding through. Make me lie. Oh, yeah, that's not the right one. This one is like for the dev server. This is the one I was using. So let's set it to true and rerun it. And you have this new file, section 0. So it created for you a new bundle. Let's go through the website now. And I'm going to open the network panel. So if you load the files, you can see you have two JavaScript files, command.js and app.js. And now I'm going to navigate to the analytics section, and you can see a new file was loaded on demand. You just have to use require ensure, and it's going to build that new bundle for you and load it asynchronously when you are browsing inside your application. So one last so yeah, that's require ensure. You can find the demo here. One last demo, it's about assets versioning. So we are going to pretend that we are deploying our application. I have like a configuration ready for this. So I'm going to create a command bundles, and this property basically say please like version the assets for me. And I also have this variable which is like the path to a fake CDN. So basically you're saying when you're going to create those bundles, you need to get them from this URL, not from locally anymore. The files are on this CDN, for example. So let's pretend we are building everything and sending it back to a CDN. So you can see now the files are versioned. All of them, they have a fingerprint right here. Also, the images that you are requiring from your JavaScript are also versioned, and they are retrieved from the fake CDN. Even the images that are inside CSS right here are versioned for you. You don't have to take care of that at all. It's automatic because the files are required using Webpack. So we have like all the checklist is okay. I mean, all the criteria are met. And you also have the assets file name that were updated directly in CSS in the templates without you having to do anything. So that's really, really good. And you can actually, there is more than that. When we migrated to Webpack, our files were like get linear by 3%. Some of them 20%, some of them didn't change. So 3% is great because I didn't change anything in the code. It's just purely Webpack. And the reason why is this is like the module, that Browserify, Webpack, and RequireJS are creating. So Webpack and RequireJS seems bigger, seems to produce bigger code, but it is before minification. And you probably know that minification, there is one thing that never gets minified, is strings. So everything that is green is not going to be minified. And Webpack, what Webpack is doing, instead of keeping the name of the module, the path to your module, when you are when you are declaring your dependency, it replaces it by an integer. And it's going to minify. The more you will have dependency, the bigger your file was supposed to get. And now, because of those integers, it's not going to get really big. So that's like an amazing optimization. So performance too. The document ready event is triggered like earlier in the process now. We were using RequireJS before, and the thing is, because it was getting, things were like a little bit slower, and people were not using the document ready anymore when they were wrapping the code that initialized the page. So they were not using document ready anymore. And when we migrated to Webpack, we had to add document ready back everywhere because everything was triggered earlier, and it was much, much faster. So the document ready and the load event are triggered earlier. You can also have like a dynamic require. So basically, you can use an expression to require a file from a folder, for example. And that's really useful with factory pattern. You don't have to create create an object that say, okay, when you are requiring this key, it's actually this file. Everything is done automatically for you, but you have to exercise caution because it means that all the files in that folder are going to be included in your bundle. But if you know that anyway you're going to use all of them, that's really, really helpful. Embedded style sheets. So that's a great thing. You can require your CSS, but you can actually put the content of your CSS inside your JavaScript files too. You don't have to create an external CSS file if you want to. Because of that, it's going to remove the CSS bottleneck that every single page application, big single page application are having, because the CSS files are getting bigger and bigger. It's like all the CSS style for all the section. Because of that, you can do asynchronous loading of CSS too. If ever you don't feel like it, because it may be you have to basically design your CSS differently because the order will matter. If you don't want to do that, you can still add a plugin to extract the CSS content into a separate file. So it's really like as you want. Some pro tips. Even if it worked with AMD and CommonJS, and we were using RequireJS, we migrated everything to CommonJS because it makes the code more maintainable and more easier to read. This is like our maintainability metric, and it is like the moment where we converted everything to CommonJS, so everything went up. So a maintainability index is like how difficult it is for a dev to actually grasp the code that it is reading. So yeah, right now, it makes it like the fact that we remove the level of indentation that comes with the RequireJS callback make everything more readable and more easy to grasp. The migration itself. So what we did is when we were deploying in the first time, before we converted everything on dev, when we were deploying, while we were deploying, we were bundling the old RequireJS bundles. And in the same time, we were converting all the code base using Nodify, that was converting everything from AMD to CommonJS, and using Webpack to create new bundles. And we have a feature flagging system, so we were able to slowly toggle everything to the Webpack bundle. So you can really converting all your code base from AMD and Nodify takes 5 seconds. The thing is, you need to make sure that production is working correctly, and that's why we started with production before converting the dev environment itself. The occurrence order plugin, it's if you use Webpack, you need to use this one. What it does is like make sure that if a module is used a lot of time, it's going to be at the top. And the reason why you need to do it is like because otherwise Webpack can create different bundles even if your code base is exactly the same, because it's going to move the modules at different places. So when you are hashing the content, it changed even if it's actually exactly the same thing. So you really need to use the occurrence order plugin to make sure that the files get the same hash, the same fingerprint when you are deploying. And shimming, I mean, if you're coming from Browserify, Webpack as a guide. Otherwise, for RequireJS, RequireJS is using export, depth, and path. The equivalent for Webpack are the export loader, the imports loader, and resolve alias. So you can use that as for future reference if you want to. Resources. I had a few things, so I created like a helper around Webpack configuration that you can use. It's on GitHub. I have a version retrieval plugin too, because when your assets get versioned, you need in the backend you need to get back a dictionary to know like, okay, which file I'm supposed to insert on my HTML page. So it's generating a JSON file that is actually a dictionary between like the old name and the new name, and you can use it in your backend, whatever you are using as a language. If you are migrating for RequireJS to Webpack, you can use add-load.js if you cannot use require ensure right away. And also, if you cannot use right away the Webpack assets versioning thing, you can use this plugin this brand plugin that I created like 2 years ago, and we were using it. We have been using it a lot. So I don't know if you have any